Well, hello everybody. I promised a few people I'd make this video, which is basically to give you an overview of a Peugeot 208 R5 T16, but also it's to talk about what it's like to own, drive, run an R5 rally car. So this is going to be the video. I'm going to break it into a few different sections, give you a quick look around the car as well, but actually just explain what the ownership of it's like. So I'll start at the very basics. When I first found out about the Peugeot R5 being available for sale, I didn't thoroughly understand that the Citroën DS3 R5 is exactly the same mechanically, and that makes a massive difference in the long term because it means there's literally hundreds of cars built by the factory team, this one in 2014, but hundreds of cars over 10 years, and they're still making them now in a slightly different format, which is the Rally 2 car. But yeah, there's Peugeot and Citroën identical mechanically, and that makes a really big difference to the ownership because it does mean in the UK, including Ireland, there's over 10, maybe 15 of these cars, and in Europe there's literally hundreds still running and still being supported by the factory team. I'll just make that clear as well. These are built by the factory team in France, and then they were exported out to different countries to be run by the various satellite rally teams, and this one was being run by Moretto Sport in Italy, so it did the Italian championships. If you need to know more about the car itself, I'll tell you about that later, but in fact I won't tell you about that. You can research it or find out online, because as long as you know the chassis number, you know it's done 70 international rallies. Delacour was a driver, all sorts of different things that the car itself has done. For this video, I'm just talking about the ownership, so I'm going to get back to it. So people, I'm referring to my notes here, people have been asking me various questions, and here goes some answers. Yes, they're still making these cars, which the Rally 2 version is virtually identical, bit newer. The significant difference is they're 6-speed and this one's a 5-speed. Really significantly, Race and Rally in Northern Ireland, credit to those guys out there, run a brilliant website, a brilliant little support package that's being offered, because they're the official Peugeot Citroën Sport supplier of not only brand new cars, but critically for us, for the spare parts and technical information. So those guys are out there, click of a button, I'll show you later, you can buy any part you want for this car. Every nut and bolt is still for sale, it's still on the shelf, and that's obviously most people want to run them in their original format. There's nothing these days to say if you're running this car on a club level, well, you could find an alternative for nuts and bolts. For example, the front bumpers. This one's not an official factory one. The official factory one we've saved, this one's a replica. It's just a lot cheaper. So there are some things you can run a lot cheaper, but if you wanted to go and buy every nut and bolt that you can't get from anywhere else, Peugeot Sport still have it available as part of that commitment they had to do with the FIA to run these cars in the first place. They had to promise a 10-year commitment, and that's what the factory team offer. With that, which I'll talk about later, comes the factory support. So if you have a real technical issue with them, you can go back to Peugeot. In fact, all you do is download your data, send it on an email. The Peugeot Citroën technicians take a look at it. If they've got any recommendations, they tell you if there's a fault or even a potential fault with your car, because they can see off the data log of what's going on. Right, I jumped the gun a little bit there. The next thing is, can you deal direct with Peugeot Sport UK? Yes, you can. However, the best prices come from dealing with Race and Rally. But if you need technical info, Race and Rally will put you on to Peugeot. To be fair, Race and Rally technicians themselves have an awful lot of experience, so they're really the first port of call. The next question is, well, there's two big questions I'm going to cover. One is, what's it like driving an R5 car? I'll discuss that in a minute. And the next one is, what's it like to run an R5 car? Well, at the beginning of the ownership journey for me, the running of the R5 was a bit terrifying, because I haven't really been around rally cars for 15 years. I'm no super mechanic myself, so I was a bit nervous, and I got a team to run the car. In the end, I would say that, for me at least, that's maybe a bad move. And the reason being that, as a driver, I like to understand mechanically what's going on with the car. So when a satellite team run it, I never really understood. I was just sitting in and driving. And for me, I needed to know a little bit more about what the car actually does, when you should change gear, how the clutch works, how it disengages four-wheel drive, what the brake setup's like, how the suspension works, what geometries make a difference. So I've gone down that route of being really interested in the technical side of it myself. And therefore I've learned, and I've started to realise just how easy these cars are to service, to work on. They're brilliant. They're not complicated. They're built for rallying off a CAD drawing, and because of that, everything that you'd expect this car to do, you take the wings off, some of the plastics away from it, and it's the easiest car in the world to work on. So yeah, of course, in an ideal world, you have some R5 relative experience, but I can tell you, I have no experience at all, and I understand this car inside out. I just had to be not frightened of it. So that's that part of it. However, there are many good teams out there, so check out to BDM Sport. You know, top professionals that were involved with this car's journey in the first instance, and if you've got the money, let a team run it. There's lots of teams out there with R5 relevant experience, so that's an easy option for most people. But if, like me, you fancy getting involved and being hands-on, you've run a car and you enjoy that side of it, then yeah, these are straightforward. You can understand them. There are some nitty-gritty small parts like stripping the diffs down, maybe stripping the gearboxes. That's specialist work. But we've found with other drivers that own these cars and technicians around us, people that know what they're doing, as long as they have the tools to undo the parts, definitely know what they're doing. And now we have the parts to undo the cars. Talking of which, without waffling on, the most important part that I've found recently was my investment in the data logging technology, the software, in order to look at in particular the engine data. So if there's a fault with the car at any level, you can see it. You can also use it for performance improvements, for example, when you're doing your gear changes. You can also predict service schedules if you need to, wear and tear, mileage, how components are performing to each other. So I'm going to show you the data, which is on the laptop. So come in a little bit, Zach. So this is the data logger. You don't need to look at it in too much detail. In fact, I'll show you some of that from this book. And this lovely book is the service manual, which just about tells you everything that you need to know on the car, how to start it. It's also Peugeot's own factory settings. So if you wanted to know suspension, how the wind tax system works. But when you're looking at some of the wind tax is the data logger, so that you're not just guessing the data that we can see on the laptop. You can send that data back to the factory team and they'll give you feedback on it. But also there's many diagrams telling you what things should look like, right down to gear sensors, throttle sensors. What else would be most relevant? For me, not that you do miss a gear, but you don't need to use the clutch with this car. And if you did a fault whilst doing that, it would tell you if it was mechanical or a personal issue. Also, from setting up the car's point of view, I'm showing you a data sheet there. Hopefully you can see it. I'll hold that. We'll go a bit wider, Zach. So back to me, I'm using this as a prop really. That's the other thing about R5s that everybody asks me on the ownership is how do you set it up, where do you start? You're not left on your own with this. There's so much data. So this data sheet is telling you tarmac settings for the works team, a basic tarmac setup, and you can go right through any rally that the works teams have ever done with Craig Breen or various drivers. This one, for example, is Portugal setup, which has got gravel and tarmac in this particular year, and it's got every suspension geometry that you would need to know. And then you've got to think, well, is it easy to actually get into the car and change those settings? The answer again is if you know what you're doing, yeah, it's particularly easy. So Zach will just go down and have a look at one of the suspension arms. We've got a few things that we could adjust. As I said before, I'm no mechanic, but basically if you're swapping the springs, you have to drop the struts down. All the shock absorbers are multi-adjustable. You can do different heights and settings. That's all you really need to know. We'll keep looking at the mechanics, Zach. So you can see the bottom subframes, anti-roll bars that are all tunable on relatively easy settings. We've got the rear diff out of this car at the moment, so look underneath. And we can see the cradle that holds the diff is on the floor, and we can and the diff's not there anymore because it's being serviced. But basically that took us 30 minutes to get out, and it'll take us 30 minutes to put it back in. So as a two-man job, it's a relatively easy thing to do, and it's straightforward to understand. There is, with this car, there is tarmac shock absorbers and gravel shock absorbers, and the gravel shock absorbers stretch a little bit further down, give more travel. This car has got 2 settings, but every nut and bolt, we'll just look at some of the nuts and bolts and bottom arms and hubs. They're exactly as you'd imagine if you were inventing a rally car. You want all the quarters to be the same. They are. All the bolts are multi-usable. It's something I personally love about it. You see everything that's one bolt that's on the front suspension is exactly the same on the rear, so it's really easy to get your head round. That was a quick look at the basic mechanics. I'm going to give you a very brief overview inside. This is more about how it feels to drive in this video, not the technical stuff, but basically it feels like a PlayStation game to drive. The setup of the car, the seating position, the power steering's amazing. I can't quite describe what it's like, but it's so precise, quick, it's just perfect because it's made for rallying. It's not a converted road car, so all that side of it is, it's easy, it's progressive, it feels great. You can keep 2 hands on the wheel all the time. It's a very similar thing goes on with your feet in position on the pedals, and the way the pedal box works is just great. You don't have to use your clutch to for up or down changing gear, so it's a bit more like driving a go-kart. And then you've got a few personal settings for the driver on the conditions. They're controlled by, we'll go for the more obvious one, which is the turbo boost gauge. Within the diagnostic setup, we've also got the possibility that on the fly, basically on the move while you're driving, you can take it into 3 different map positions for throttle position, and you can have gravel or tarmac settings. But what I should say about all of that is if you just set it in a safe, easy setting in the middle, probably 250, 260 brake horsepower, on something like 4 on the turbo boost, I find that the easiest thing to do from a driver's point of view. And I know as a driver I'm nowhere near getting the best out of it if you put it on maximum everything. Because as much as you gain through having 300 horsepower, which is standard stuff, yeah, you know, you might be a little bit quicker down the straight, but in the end you brake harder. You know, you've got to go through the corner, it's more aggressive on the throttle. So unless you really know the car inside out, you don't actually gain any more speed on the stage. So I'm only just getting round to using full turbo boost, full 300 horsepower. It's worth saying at this stage, if you wanted this car to be a bit quicker, you could do, because it's been restricted to international European rallying. 31mm restrictor that it's got on it makes it super reliable. It's ready to do thousands of miles without need of major service. So it's sort of bulletproof in its setup. But a lot of club rally drivers are tuning all their R5 cars to win at club level, which means they've, you know, full everything, and for short sprint events. You could do that with this car. I haven't felt the need, because it's really great fun to drive, and that's the key thing with this car, the maximum value. Even setting off on a start line and doing an automated start is really good fun. It's exciting, it's hard for me to get right, and you've got to remember a procedure, and all of that's just really entertaining. Handbrake, when it works, is phenomenal. It's got a obviously disengage the 4-wheel drive system, and I've had issues with this car about that, but a lot of that is getting used to the car as well, and some mechanical servicing that's needed. So yeah, you need to understand it technically, but it's great fun to drive. And that's all I wanted to say. I might make another video about how to actually set up an R5 car, because I'd love it if other drivers had done that. But I think the more that you tune yourself into it, you begin to realise it's a very personal experience, because you're looking at throttle position, how much power, where your seating position is, you know, how late you want to brake. Everything's personal to you. So I think the best overview I can give it is the fun of driving this car is that you can tune it to what you want as a driver, and that's where a lot of the entertainment comes from. This car's clearly way more capable than I am, and I think I'm a pretty good driver. So yeah, and I'm sure everybody that drives an R5 car will say the same. They're as much entertained with the technology and driving it and getting the most out of the car, because there's always something left. These cars are so capable in a very basic mechanical way. It's a great fun to drive. You know, do you want more oversteer? Do you want it more understeer? Do you want a big kick of power up? the bum, or you know, do you want it to be easy to drive on in different conditions? So yeah, they're great, really exciting. So that's it. You know, are they fun to drive? Yeah, best car by a long way that I've ever driven. Most fun all round, mechanically most fun, really reliable. And when things go wrong, it's usually me that's at fault, and that's exciting in itself. And if you just want to drive it, set it all in the middle. You know, don't touch anything again, and drive it and enjoy the drive. So no explanation about the ownership of an R5 car will be complete without knowing that you can buy and service and get expert advice from somebody. I've already mentioned before that Race and Rally is the place to be, so I'm going to quickly show you around their website so you can get used to it. If you're thinking of buying a Peugeot Citroën car, you'll get very used to looking at this. So we'll zoom in a little bit, Zach. As I've said before, to find the correct parts, we're looking at the Citroën DS3 because it's exactly the same. I'm quickly going into the parts chapter. You can then pick on any type of component that you want. Let's look at engine, for example. We'll split the engine down, and let's look at the alternator for the sake of it. Okay, we're looking at the alternator, and as we can see there, quite an expensive alternator as it goes, but more importantly is that every small little nut, bolt, flange that you can see is available to buy. Now it could be that you're the sort of mechanical person that would want to replace these parts with cheaper parts that you can find yourself. Clearly it's your car, so you can do what you want with it, but I think it's a big peace of mind that you can go and buy everything from the factory team, and you're never stuck for parts. That's just a massive part of the ownership of these cars. We'll go a bit wide as that while I just talk my way through this. Then the thing is about servicing something. So every single nut and bolt, not only can you buy it, but if you've got a problem with the car, or it's a service item, you probably want to know how to fix it. And you maybe have never worked on it before. Well, just about for every job, especially a normal service item, the factory team have done a manual to explain how to repair, how to replace a part. So I've picked on the four-wheel drive. Well, let's see what it's called here. I can tell you what I'm better off telling you what it does. This is the hydraulic pump that actuates the engagement of the four-wheel drive. When you pull the handbrake, this releases the hydraulic pressure in the rear differential. It's an interesting setup. It's something I've had to replace, and I've replaced the whole thing. But it even tells you here the tools that are needed to do the job. It tells you the spanners and everything. Now, I replaced the whole thing because it was about £1,000 to get everything. But you don't. I didn't need to do that. If I knew the smaller item, maybe it was one of the sensors, I could have just bought one of the sensors for £24. But as mine was quite old, I thought all in all, in fact, I don't think it was £1,000, it was about £800, but it was well worth me being able to swap everything on that actuation unit, and just for peace of mind. But that's a small example that everything's available. Technically speaking, you're going to get advice, you know, how to tighten every nut and bolt, how to split it down. So that's just great. I've never owned a car that's done that. With rallying, you tend to be just on your own. You're not on your own with this. It's a works car, and you've got all the technical advice that you would need. A final thing to bring to people's attention. So I'm just going to close this rally by saying probably one of the things that is the most important thing to me with owning an R5 and this type of, if I dare say it, a supercar, and especially the Peugeot version, because it's associated with Group B rallying, because it's a T16. That's obviously a nod to the Group B era. The car itself, the Peugeot R5 T16, was launched by Ari Vatanen in 2014, an obvious link to what they did in rallying. It's an international winning car. My car in particular has got its own history path, with Attilio Bettiger's son driving it. It's a winner in an Italian championship. Francois Delico's driven it. Kev Furber's even driven it. And the key to that is that basically owning this type of car opens up the door not only to do club rallies, international rallies if you want to, but for me at least, it's opened the door to continue the invites that I had with my original T16 in the display events. So just about any event anywhere is going to be happy to see an R5 car run, and especially this car because it has an association with Group B. So it's in works colours. Everybody compliments me and says the car looks fantastic, but the best thing of all that I can say is already in the couple of years of owning it is that we've done Goodwood Festival of Speed, we did Goodwood Speed Week, great television exposure, and many other events that we nearly won a sprint event that was Shelsley Walsh sprint event, which was with Group B cars and the legendary Steve Davis, who sadly is no longer with us, but anyway, the Rally 22 event, and that was great to join the fun of Group B, modified cars, sprint cars. Basically, you can turn up at any event and you've got a car that's capable of holding its own in any environment. So yeah, you could do a club rally and probably win it outright. You can go and do a display event and make it sound absolutely awesome and put on a big sliding display. As you can see in the background there, that's us and Lord March. And the first time that we went to Goodwood with the car, I'm sure you've seen lots of videos around. But I'm going to say that from an investment point of view, that was the final thing, that when people are investing in an R5 car, it's a pretty secure investment for the future. You know, that they're not difficult to run right now. They've got reliability built into them realistically because they're very limited, 31mm restrictor on the turbo, you know, maximum brake horsepower. Nobody can put anything, you know, silly turbo stuff. You can't go outside the service schedules, but you can because you can do more mileage, but you know, you can't tune these cars in a way that could damage them. And that's a fantastic thing to have. So you've got an open ticket to any Gold Star world-class display event that you want. Therefore, the investment in these cars for the future is a pretty solid one, I would say. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you got to the end of this and you want to know more about owning one of these cars, feel free, give me a call. It may not be my car that you're interested in buying. It could be the sister car that's for sale right now. I don't know when this video will be out, but it might be another car. I'm personally just happy to encourage more Peugeot owners. The more Peugeot owners that we have in the UK running these cars or Rally 2 cars just secures the future for all of us to run these cars more cheaply. So it's one happy family. Thank you very much for watching.